We have a brand new spell from the folks over at Wizards of the Coast, released in their latest edition of Unearthed Arcana. It is called House of Cards. Now remember, this is playtest material, so let's take a look at it. Salient points: 1 minute casting time. You touch a spot on the ground and conjure forth a defensive structure made of enormous playing cards. Really cool concept. I really like that. You have half cover for a creature who's inside or on top of it. It's a 3-story structure connected by ramps internally, and then there are doors, open doorways from the inside and the outside. All right, so here's the catch. These cards are very fragile, as you can imagine, and so they have an AC of 10 and 1 hit point each. What happens when one of these is destroyed? Well, you roll a d6. On a 5 or a 6, the entire structure comes toppling down. It's evocative, it's great in keeping with the concept. Just one problem. It's a 3rd level spell. Same level as another spell you might recall, Leomund's Tiny Hut. And quite frankly, there's no comparison between the two. If you're trying to take a long rest somewhere, you're gonna go for Leomund's every time. Why? It's a virtually impregnable dome. You can safely take a rest inside. Yes, I know there are some ways around it, and there's some controversy, but that's not what this video is all about. There is no controversy when it comes to House of Cards. You can just walk right in. Any kind of a breath weapon, any kind of a range or a ranged attack or an area of effect attack, as long as it's not, I believe, poison or psychic damage, is going to do massive damage to this structure. Now, this causes some dicey questions for us Dungeon Masters. You can either grind the game to a halt or wind up putting you as a Dungeon Master in a position where you're having to say, guys, I mean, it's probably going to do enough damage to enough of these cards. It's probably going to take the whole thing down. Really don't like doing that to players, especially with a 3rd level spell. So, how can we fix it? I mean, there are 2 options, basically. One is you remove the fragility of the playing cards. I don't really like this because it's not in keeping with the theme of the whole concept. I mean, it's a house of cards, right? It's supposed to be easy to come down. But at the same time, you're not, as a player, if you have any desire to be effective whatsoever, I have a hard time finding you're going to actually take up a 3rd level spell to actually do this. It's a house of cards. Now, I think you might, as a second, or honestly, if it were me, I would make it a 1st level spell. If you make this a 1st level spell, okay, great. It's nowhere near as good as Leomund's, but hey, what 1st level spell is, right? I would go ahead and make it a 1st level spell. And for some of you, you might have been paying a little bit closer attention. You might have already read this. You might have noticed, well, wait a second. Sorcerers don't get Leomund's. Sorcerers do get House of Cards, at least in this current rendition. Agreed. However, sorcerers also have a very limited number of spells known. Ask me how I know. My wife actually plays a Gestalt multi-class Sorcerer Bard or Sorka Bard, and so she has access to a lot more spells known than your average sorcerer, but I can tell you right now, she would never burn one of those spells known on this spell as a 3rd level spell. It's just not going to happen. So, in terms of effectiveness, it's not going to beat Leomund's. It's not going to even come close to matching Leomund's. So I would suggest make it a 1st level spell. But hey, what do you think? Go ahead and drop a note in the comments, or one of the other ways you have of getting a hold of me and airing your opinions on the matter. I'd love to hear what happened if you used it in playtesting, or if you're going to use it in playtesting. Definitely update me after the fact. There's a lot more in this UA, guys, and I want to actually talk about a lot of it, but it would be like a 3-hour video, and so we're not going to do that. I'm going to keep it real short here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow, depending on the platform, so that you can see more of this content as it comes out. I do have a lot more things to talk about, including, I think next up from this UA is going to be, I'm not going to spoil it. It's just really awesome and exciting. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.